welcome back to another edition of Beyond the Endzone. I am your host, of course, Nathan Lee, as I try to find a perfect spot for my ear here. I don't want to hear too much of myself. That's for y'all to enjoy, right? Obviously, another big week in sports. Got plenty to talk about, plenty to break down for all of y'all. It's getting to that crazy part of the year where we're in the middle of football for some leagues. We're getting to the end of some football in high school. College is getting to that spot where we got the first college football rankings. We'll talk about how Ole Miss controls their destiny after coming in sixth of the first CFP rankings. And then obviously with the NFL, you're kind of in that dead spot where we're in the middle of the year. We know which teams are good, and it's just exciting to see, how everything's going to play out. But obviously we'll break all these games down ahead this week. And obviously college basketball is also back. So we'll kind of talk about that and see how our teams are doing so far this year, real early in the year. So we've only gotten a very, very one game, small sample size, but man, it's awesome. Sports are awesome. We're getting to that spot too where, football and basketball are colliding. Now, I am a Lakers fan. I'm sorry to disappoint any of my fans out there that don't like that I'm a Lakers fan. I've been a Lakers fan for a while, for a long time when Kobe was still on the team. But, when I was watching the Lakers last night, it was crazy. I had this thought man, basketball's already here. That's crazy to me. And also the Lakers are playing some really good ball. Luka Doncic, this is amazing. But let's talk about Mississippi and our teams here. Y'all don't want to hear about some LA teams, Let's get into it. First of all, we got to do this. We got to talk about our game of the week. Like I just said, high school football is right. Playoffs are right around the corner. We're getting into some games already in the playoffs. And this one, is your game of the week is a big time playoff game. We have Pisgah taking on Raleigh. Now, we have seen Pisgah a couple times this year so far. This was their game against Richland that I was out at. And, watching that team, very impressed with, how comfortable they are with their offense and their ability to move the ball with the run game. They're very confident in the run game. They can find it on the ground. And this right here is actually from last year's incredible game between these two teams. So it's going to be a really good one. We have not actually got to see Raleigh this year in person. Sorry to all my Raleigh fans and people that went to the high school of Raleigh, but this is our first time getting a taste of them. I've been kind of keeping up with them, with their scores, looking at their schedule and seeing who they've beaten, and it's an impressive team. This should be an impressive game to get everything rolling, but this is just one of many games we got for y'all in our slate for Endzone. Obviously, tonight we got some massive games to end some regular seasons in MHSAA. And then we got some teams getting started in the playoffs tomorrow, as well as MAIS. Now we got our big teams, our big MAIS teams. They don't get started till next week. So tune in, though. We got some big games tonight. We'll have Madison Central Clinton. We'll be out at that game. Brandon and their game against Meridian. We got some good ones, y'all. Murrah versus Germantown. So we'll have all those scores and highlights, most of those highlights for y'all later tonight at 10. So tune into the 10 p.m. show to get all updates on those final scores. And, of course, on WLBT.com, you can find those finals as well. But as always, join us for another edition of the Endzone tomorrow to find out the final in that Pisgah-Raleigh game, which should be a special one, as well as many more across the state. All right, let's keep on moving, though. I'm trying to pick up my pace here, right? Give me some more time to kind of break down these teams and games we got going ahead and not get on too long of a tangent here. But we got to talk about Ole Miss. We got to get to this Ole Miss team and what has taken place, right? So now they are the sixth team in the country after the first college football playoff rankings. That's the first thing we want to talk about here before their game against the Citadel, which I can imagine we all know how that one should play out and will play out. But what an impressive season for these Ole Miss Rebels, right? We come into the year. You hear this quote-unquote rebuild year. This is not going to be their year that they're going to make a run at it. And all of a sudden, you are the sixth team in the country, and you nearly beat the fifth team in the country. And Georgia probably should have won that game. And now you sit in this position where you completely control your destiny, and the quote-unquote hard games are out of the way now. Every game in the SEC is not is a tough game, and you're going to have to have your best. Obviously, that's without a doubt. But with where Ole Miss is right now and where their schedule lays out for the rest of the season, it is favorable, right? You get the Citadel, Florida, and the Mississippi State. That's obviously a toss-up game, being the Egg Bowl, and it's such a massive rivalry. You never know what can happen in a game like that. And with Mississippi State getting that first SEC win in over 2 years last week, they're going to want that one, and they're going to be coming in real ready to try and derail the Rebels. But that's the point, right? The Rebels are in a spot right now where they control their destiny. Now, they don't control their destiny to the SEC championship. They would have to have some help there with a Texas A&M losing or an Alabama losing, as well as Georgia technically being ahead of them with that head-to-head win over them, and they only having that one loss in SEC play to Alabama. But we got some big games when we talk about for these other teams. Texas A&M, they have no slouch. They don't get a cakewalk. They still got to play a Texas team at the end of the year that is playing their best ball right now. And everyone talked about Texas coming into the year, and they're starting to look like the Texas we thought they would look like. Arch had his best game, I thought, last week. And even when you talk about the Mississippi State game, making that comeback, I think that was kind of the moment where he may have flipped a switch and he's starting to find his groove. But when we talk about where we sit right, an incredible position to find themselves into the playoffs and even host a playoff game. That's what we're talking about right now. Currently, right now, they would be shooting into the 7th spot of the playoffs, and they would take on a Virginia out there in the ACC, who's come out of nowhere. That's a fun team, right? Virginia out of nowhere. I didn't have them on my radar at the beginning of the year, and all of a sudden, with everything happening in the ACC, with all these teams losing, all these upsets, Georgia Tech losing, Miami getting their second loss of the year last week. And now you got teams like Louisville and Virginia coming out of nowhere, really, and vying for that ACC bid, looking like it's going to probably be a one-bid league. But, that's where Ole Miss sits, and now they take on a Citadel team where I would break it down for you, but I think it's pretty simple what Ole Miss has to do in this game. They got to show up, be ready, and it's an early game, so you know how sometimes those games can go, but I imagine they're going to be ready, and I imagine we're going to see a lot of Kawan Lacey. I think we're going to see a lot of the run game, and I think we're going to see Lane really control this game with a lot of plays, like he likes to do, those 15-play drives, take some time off the clock and really just control this game. I imagine that's what we're going to see, and it's a good game for Ole Miss to kind of get a little reset, not treat it like it's not like a normal game. Obviously, you got to come into every single game ready to go and ready to perform. But with this one, right, it's a good chance to get some other guys in that you possibly might need in the playoffs when we talk about depth. So it's a good opportunity for Ole Miss to get some other guys out there. All right, let's move on to our big game this week where we could possibly see an upset, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, that's kind of previewing my pick a little bit later maybe, but Mississippi State, they have a test this week against the Georgia Bulldogs. That they're riding that high, getting that first SEC win under Jeff Lebby in the Lebby era out there at Starkville, and you don't really get too much time to celebrate it because now you got to play one of the best teams in the entire country in the Georgia Bulldogs. This is such an interesting game. Being at Stark Vegas, I'm very excited to see what that crowd is like now. Another early game, so the fans are going to have to show up early for this one. But, wow, this is really, for Mississippi State, this is all playing out in such a interesting scenario for them, right? When we talk about where they were at the beginning of the year, 4-0, looking like they're going to have a good chance to win some big SEC games. And then they have these just slip-ups at the end of these games against Tennessee where you go to overtime and you're one play away from tying in and possibly winning it later on. Texas, that fourth quarter, what happened in that game? You let these games slip away. In Florida, another opportunity for them to win. So when you got all these games slipping away, now all of a sudden the narrative and the conversation around the team is completely different, right? You start getting these, these takes where, hey, we got to start thinking about what we're going to do next year. And I'm a Jeff Lebby guy. I think you got to give the guy a chance. Mississippi State's never been the easiest place to recruit and even, win the massive games. And he's turned around the culture. I think that's the biggest thing here. What you're seeing in this team is that they're confident. And it doesn't matter really about the results. Obviously, you want to win every single game, especially the games that you had won or could win, especially in the SEC. But this team is really, taking on his culture, it feels like. And we're starting to see what they can be when they play all four quarters. And I was really impressed with that Arkansas game because it kind of flipped on itself, right? How that game played out. And where they were in the fourth quarter, and all of a sudden they're the one making the comeback and shoring it up and winning that one. But now they take on this Georgia team. When you look at this matchup, I'm very curious about Georgia's pass rush. Now, when we think about Georgia's pass rush, you think about Georgia, you think about elite. You think about the guys that have been all the guys that have been taken in the first round of the draft when it comes to pass rushers for Georgia. It's not the case this year, really. They're not really getting after the quarterback as well as they have in the past. Now, this is still the Georgia Bulldogs. They still got guys up front. But when we talk about Mississippi State, and for my state fans that are avid listeners, y'all probably have heard me on air and on here talk about you got to be able to protect Blake Shapen. I know it's much easier said than done, but when we look at these games that they've let slip away, that was a big reason why, protecting Blake Shapen. And as well as Kamara Taylor, who we're starting to see come out there, the freshman, man, he is something special to watch. I cannot wait to see what he can do in the coming years. I think they're doing it the right way, though. I know a lot of people have been putting it out there on social media that he should maybe get in the opportunity at the starting role. And I like to see a kid develop, give him a chance to develop. They got packages for him. He's getting on the field. He's showing his athleticism. They're starting to use him a little bit more in the pass game, which is kind of fun to see. Obviously, when Shapen went out, he did have to come in and assume duties at quarterback. But obviously, Shapen comes back in and just goes crazy in the fourth quarter and shows you what I saw in Blake Shapen when he was out there at Baylor. He's got a good moxie to him. I like the cut of his jib, and I like him. I like him, and he's had some tough moments where the fans are going after him and media is going after him. And, I'd love to see him have an opportunity to go win a game and then do it. Now he has another opportunity and an opportunity to shock the world, because this right here, I think this game is a little bit closer than people are going to imagine. Now, is Mississippi State going to win? That's a tall task against a team like this in Georgia that, they're still finding their way on offense and defense. And, Gunnar Stockton, their quarterback, wasn't too high on him coming into the season. And, he's kind of proven me wrong. I really like what he's done in his abilities and really growing, because we saw him last year in the playoffs coming in, due to injury and for Carson Beck. And, the system really wasn't catered to him. Now you're starting to see it a little bit more catered to him, and you're starting to see him flourish a little bit. Really liking what I see from him. So the Bulldogs, they got to be able to stop this offense. I know it's very, very layman terms, but when we talk about being able to stop the run, can't let Gunnar Stockton get out of the pocket. Those little things you can't let him create, because that's where he's at his best, when he can create, even scramble off of that, and then protecting Blake Shapen, which is something that the Bulldogs in Georgia, haven't done that well this year. So if the offensive line can hold up for Mississippi State, I think we could have an interesting little game out there in Starkville. We will be out there and bring you coverage from that game. Our Teddy Reedy will be our reporter out there to bring you everything out there early at 11 a.m. All right, now to Jackson State. My Tigers, they bounced back in a big way last week. Loved to see that. And now they get ready for a big-time test this week against Mississippi Valley State. Now, Mississippi Valley State hasn't had the season that they wanted, or the fans have wanted. It's kind of that in that transition era when it comes to their program. And then Jackson State coming off of a big win last week. Was really impressed how they responded, right? And how that game went last week, right? At the start, it was a little mucky. It was not looking that promising. Now, I was confident they would pull off the win, but when it was such a competitive game, and especially being such a defensive game early on in that first half against Florida A&M, I was a little nervous. I was wondering, hey, is the offense going to start finding its gear here? And man, did they. Goodness. And that second half, they went crazy, y'all. I was so impressed with them in that second half, winning 41-16. And, when we came into the game after the loss, right, and you talk about where they sit in their division now, where are they done? Is there no more opportunities? Well, guess what? This team came out here in the second half especially and showed you why they're still one of, if not the best team in the SWAC. Every team has a slip up every now and then. Going out there to Vegas, that was a tough travel. It's not an excuse. I know we hear some coaches saying this travel thing is real. Some of them saying that's just a part of the game. I believe it's just a part of the game. But that doesn't take away from the fact that that is a long travel for these kids and these guys and staff from all over from Jackson to Las Vegas to play a game like that in HBCU, Las Vegas Classic. There was a lot around it as well. but Davenport, man, and Miller, they really showed up. They took over on the ground, y'all. I'm actually pulling up. I wrote it down, but I forgot my phone with the stats on it, so I'm pulling this up right now. Yeah, I thought so. Yeah. Nearly 400 rushing yards. I couldn't remember the exact total. 392. Yeah, that's what Jackson State did on the ground, and that's when they're at their best, right? We talked about how elite this running game is. They're averaging just ridiculous amounts of yards on the ground every single week, and they got back to that. They really focused in on the run game, and at the end of the half, they hit that big play at the end for the big play to get into the red zone and nearly getting the touchdown on that run, which was amazing. But by Miller, but that kind of sparked him. It felt like, hey, let's play Jackson State football, and they did that. Now they got to go against Mississippi Valley State out there. It is technically a road game for them, but obviously they're not leaving the state for it. Interesting game. I think Jackson State is going to look really good, and they got a chip on their shoulder, man. After that loss, no one wants to lose, but that was one of those games where, for me, it felt like it's not a good loss because it impacts the standings and where you sit, and you really controlled your destiny if you just went out. I get all those things, but sometimes a loss like that can really shift a team and shift their focus to, hey, we may have been a little lax on certain things, and it felt like they locked in a little bit. Now, obviously, this team is good, great, got a lot of talent, and they're coming out every single week trying to win. Not trying to take that away from them or say that I know more, but it did feel like that something clicked last week, and I imagine they're going to give Mississippi Valley State their best punch this weekend, and we'll have coverage from that one as well on Saturday. All right, let's keep this thing going to our New Orleans Saints now. Man, I wish there was something good to say, y'all. I wish there was something good to say. Saints fall to 1-8, and now they have traded two starters off of their team. Rashid Shaheed on your screen right now. He was traded at the deadline on Tuesday for a 4th and 5th round pick in 2026. And then Trevor Penning, the guy on your screen right now, offensive lineman who had been moved to guard in the Kellen Moore era, has been traded to the Chargers for a 6th round pick in 2027. So wanted to hit on those couple things. Some moves for the Saints at the trade deadline. Imagine the Saints were going to be sellers. They were, but I thought they actually would be bigger sellers. I didn't think they would get rid of an Alvin Kamara because he's really made it clear that he wants to stay with New Orleans. But there was other guys out there on the team that I wasn't going to be shocked if they moved on from. But they keep Chris Olave. They keep an Alvin Kamara. They keep some of the vets when you look at a DeMario Davis and Cam Jordan. They didn't sell as much as I thought they would, but definitely wanted to hit on that as we get into the season. Now 1-8 in the season, and they're taking on a Panthers team that is a really good football team. Obviously last year we all remember where the Panthers were, where Bryce Young was getting benched, and questions were surrounding if he's going to be the guy for the rest of the time. For the rest of his career, would he stay in Carolina? Is this our franchise guy? We drafted him so high, obviously, with the first pick. There's those questions, and all of a sudden the Panthers are at 5-4 and they're vying for the division. The division is not out of the question yet, especially with the Falcons kind of falling off a little bit and being really wishy-washy. And then obviously the Bucs are the best, but it's not out of the question yet, right? Panthers getting a game against the Saints this week to get to 6-4. That's a great opportunity for them. And when you look at this game, the run game is really what scares me for the Saints here. The Saints have not stopped the run at all this year. If you remember the Bills game last week, I mean, you can look back at most weeks, the run game has been the big run defense specifically for the Saints has been not good, allowing a lot of yards on the ground, over 160. So it's one of those things. If you're not stopping the run, good luck. And the Panthers have a guy, Enrico Dowdle, who is playing like one of, if not the best running backs in the league this year. I mean, he's got multiple 200-yard rushing games. He's finding the end zone a lot, and they are giving him the ball a lot. So that's a very interesting battle we're going to see in this one. Can the front seven for the Saints get a push? That's what I'm seeing. They're getting bullied out there. You watch some of some of the tape from last week against the Rams, and bully ball. Now we know how good the Rams are, offensive line and overall team. There's difference between a great team and a bad team, but man, the Saints can't get bullied off the ball, or it's going to be another bad day for them. But a winnable game, right? This is a game, division. I know it's in Carolina, but this is a game that the Saints can and need to win. Shuck did not look bad in his first start last week. Was actually pretty impressed with him. He's a rookie. He's the hasn't had all the shackles taken off yet, so he's got the training wheel still on a little bit. I like how the ball flies out of his hand. I really do. I think he's got a lot of zip on the ball. Now it's just about reps. Just got to give him a chance. And I know Rattler didn't play bad, but you draft this guy in the second round, he's got to play, right? And when you're 1-7 before they make the decision last week, you're in a point of the year where the season's over when you're talking about postseason. So get the guy out there, see what you got. When we talk about quarterbacks, you know what Rattler's got. We've seen him multiple times, had multiple starts over 2 seasons. Kind of can throw away last season with all the injuries they had, but we saw this year getting only 1 win. He had his opportunity. Let's see what Shuck can do. Very intrigued by this matchup. Can the Saints offense kind of get its spark going? Can it figure its thing out? That's been another thing that has struggled is their offense. This is what Tyler Shuck had to say, about what we're seeing from this offense and what they need to do to improve.
There's not necessarily an emphasis. I think the plays that we had were working. We just got short on a few short yardages, and we just got to continue to find the way to run the ball and move the chains a little bit better. And that's me as well, running the ball, finding those checkdowns. I think whenever we're, aggressive but under control, we can find some success there. So, for me, I like to come out the gate and do everything that we can, just go out there and rip it. And I think it was just good to learn from. You can't, you can't have 3 and outs like that.
It's very true. 3 and outs are a big problem for the Saints. They started the game with 3 straight the entire first quarter. They didn't get a first down to the second quarter. So they got to pick up that. They got to be able to start faster. All those little things in their matchup against the Panthers. All right. I know I talked about basketball, so I do want to hit on it. Your New Orleans Pelicans did get their first win over the last week. They've gotten 2 now. Big-time wins here. Beating Dallas last night. This was an impressive win. Now it's Dallas. They're 2-6 this season. Not as good as they wanted to start, but the Pelicans, there's Derek Queen, the rookie, making a play there. City Day right there with a beautiful shot. Wow, that's impressive. But big win for them. They get the victory late in this one, obviously right here at the end. There's Cooper Flag trying to tie it, not quite. What a game, and good for the Pelicans to get into that win column, get back into their groove, and see if they can rattle off some wins here as Zion comes back and gets healthy once again. Hopefully he can get healthy and stay healthy. All right. Also, Ole Miss and Mississippi State getting big wins in basketball last night. That game for Mississippi State against North Alabama. Interesting early on, but then they go crazy to end that game, going like a 20 to 30 point run here at the end to really put that game away and win by double digits. I was watching. I was like, yeah, come on, State. What are we doing here? Man, is Josh Hubbard so fun to watch. That dude can do pretty much everything. Love his handle. Love his ability to create off the dribble. So big wins for them, and we'll have more on them as the season unfolds. They've only got 1 game under their belt. It's crazy. All right. Let's get to the games. Our game picks, ladies and gentlemen. We have a lot on the slate here. And let's get right into it. Georgia taking on Mississippi State. Georgia, 9.5-point favorites, 57.5 over under. 11 a.m. kickoff. Georgia, can they beat them by 9.5 points? Double digits pretty much. I think State keeps it close. I really do. I think it's going to get around that third quarter. Maybe Georgia kind of takes the lead and they cover in the end. But I think we got a good game. I do believe Georgia will get the win, though. Would not be shocked. I got a feeling about Mississippi State in this game. I really do. All right, Ole Miss, the Citadel. There wasn't even a spread on this one. Ole Miss obviously gets the win there. Texas A&M, 6.5-point favorites against Missouri. Big game for Texas A&M to kind of keep control of the SEC with their undefeated record. Missouri is a good team. Had some tough losses, but it's still a really good team at number 22. I think Texas A&M, though, it's the win here. They're really good. They might be the best team in the country. LSU, Alabama, great rivalry. LSU, new head coach, obviously Brian Kelly getting fired. What do we see here? Bama, 9.5-point favorites. I think LSU is gonna be one of those games where you're gonna see LSU's best punch. They're gonna play probably their best game of the season. I think Ty Simpson is gonna be a little too much for this LSU defense with Weeks. if he's back, actually, I did not check that. That's on me. But with that spread being the way I imagine he's not playing. If he's playing, that kind of does change things for the defense for LSU. If he's not playing, I'm a little worried about them being able to stop Ty Simpson. And if Alabama can get that run game going, man, their offense is special. Oregon, Iowa, this game, I'm keeping my eye on this one. I think this is going to be a great game. Well, great game. I think it's going to be a really, really gritty football game. Low scoring, tough for both offenses. Iowa has come back out of nowhere here with a chance to even make the playoffs now, where they sit if they get this win here. I got Iowa pulling off the upset here. You got to pick an upset. I got Iowa getting the win here. Big game there. I'm keeping my eye on that one. That's a game I'm really interested in. BYU, Texas Tech. What a big game for the Big 12 here. This is the best game of the weekend. Obviously, 2 top 10 teams here. People are kind of questioning their positioning in the rankings. BYU, man, I really like BYU, but with it out there at Texas Tech, that is one of the craziest places to play. And when they're winning, it's even harder to play out there. I really like Texas Tech in this game. 10.5 is a lot. Injuries play into that line, but I think Texas Tech at home, I think that just plays too much into their favor, and they need this one. They can't really lose this game. If they lose this game, it's really hard for them to get back into the playoff picture with how things are shaking out in the Big 12. Give me Texas Tech getting a big-time win here. All right, let's keep this thing rolling to Thursday Night Football. Raiders take on the Broncos. Sean Payton out there with the Broncos is winning and looking great, doing it. Bo Nix is doing great. Will Lutz is an incredible kicker still. Was with the Saints. Of course, he went there and is still great. Broncos, Raiders. Raiders have not played their best ball or played like some people thought they would this year. Give me the Broncos in this one and the cover. And then your New Orleans Saints take on the Panthers. 5.5-point favorites for the Carolina Panthers. Saints keep it close. Panthers are going to sadly get the win. Sorry, Saints fans. Who dat all the way. And that was another episode of Beyond the Endzone. Thank you for joining us once again. And as always, we'll be back here next Thursday to talk about everything in the sports world. Y'all have an incredible rest of y'all's day.